Okay, perfect. So now we're online. Yay! Okay. So I'll start off. I'm Beth Hansen, and I'm from Idaho / Montana, but I live in Texas right now. So.
Okay, I can go next. I'm Riley Ferens. I'm from Las Vegas originally, but I'm in Rexburg with my husband.
I'm Susan, and I'm in Texas. I'm from Southern California and Wisconsin, and been married for 30 years. We've been in Texas for 8 years now, and that's where I am.
Hey, Susan, really quick, can you try unplugging your headphones and plugging them back in? Okay, try talking again.
I can't hear you. Oh, wait. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Okay.
I just have an echo. It might be my headphones, though, so.
I got an echo as soon as you opened up this new Hangout. So
Did you close the other one? Or?
Did I? Maybe I didn't.
I don't know if I was.
Yeah, because that may be the echo.
Did I? Am I still here?
Yeah.
Okay. Is it gone now? Is it gone now?
It.
I haven't been hearing an echo either, actually.
Okay.
But I'm Heather Farnsworth. So I'll keep it going. And I'm from Arizona, but I'm living in Rexburg now.
And I am Fallon. I live in Miami, but I'm originally from Costa Rica.
Oh.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, nice to meet everybody, officially.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, do you guys want to start? I'll moderate today, and then we can just switch off, and then Heather's going to give it a summary at the end. So, the first question that they asked was, what threats to children and families did Elder Holland mention? How has Babylon influenced the development of the threat to children and families that you have chosen to address? So, Beth, do you want to go first?
Sure. So in Elder Holland's address, I guess I was a little bit confused on this end. Am I supposed to talk about, like, the experience that he had with the police officer who found the children, or just in general?
I think in general.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's your own perspective of what you got out of that.
Okay. I guess for me, I just realized that, you know, we're under attack as a whole, and especially children. I think that they get thrown into the mix and they don't have control over their situation very often. And I guess for me, just because I have a 10 to 15, I've been trying to think of how I can protect him and how I can raise him to be able to protect himself. And I don't know. I guess for me, what I really thought about is how can I teach my children how to be not judgmental, and how can I myself make sure that I'm not being judgmental, and how can I make sure that I'm handling situations as God would have me handle them, and how do I teach my children to do that? So I think for this, it just made me ask myself a lot of questions.
What was your threat that you're doing this week?
Oh, I don't remember. I don't even remember what I had for lunch. Sorry. I'm so behind right now. I'm going to have to go back and find it. I wrote it down. Sorry.
Can I say something really quick? What you were saying about not being judgmental. I really like in his talk that he mentions, that it says, judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Just stating that it's okay to judge, but as long as it's righteously. Because, I mean, we make decisions every single day, and that's actually judging based on what's in front of us. So it's just saying that as long as we judge righteously, because we are, it's a responsibility for us to judge righteously, not what the world thinks or what the world wants us to see, but what the Lord wants us to do. And as he was saying, it was also talking about if you judge don't ever judge the person, but judge, the situation, or judge the sin instead, but not the person, because we're all children of God. So.
Yeah, I like how he talked about the girl with the spiky, colorful hair.
Right.
And I feel like that's hard. As members, we kind of have a culture where if someone were to walk into our church building, I think half of the ward would be like, yes, someone that we can convert and teach and be a missionary to. And then the other half would just be like, oh, who's that? Like,
Right.
Or if they were a long-term member of the ward, a lot of the times there's people who will roll their eyes like, oh, what did she do this time, And I feel like it goes along with what you were saying, Colin. Like, you have to judge righteously. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know their life. And even if you do, you should err on the side of mercy rather than on the side of
I definitely agree with that. Just kind of an example of that. So my mother-in-law is an amazing woman, but she had a really hard time growing up. And her dad was into drugs and had all these different things going on in his life, and he eventually came back to the church. But it was really hard for her mom to take my mother-in-law and her sister to church because she said she always felt like she was being judged, and they had come from very different backgrounds. And like my grandma now, she really was trying to do the best she could, but like the ward she was in, no matter how hard she tried, they didn't accept her. And it broke my heart because she's an amazing woman, but they judged her because of her husband's actions at the time. And she was a little bit eccentric. Like, she liked wigs, and people thought that she was a different woman every week because she changed her haircut, but like, they were just very quick to judge her. And for like 8 years, I think is what she said, she just didn't feel like she could find a place in the ward. Like, it was just so sad to me to think about that.
Wow. Now that you said that, in that same area, he says that, when he says, what if that was my daughter, but he says that you start being grateful, and he says in there, you start being grateful that she's in the church, at a church activity, not avoiding one. Because in all reality, people could just be out doing whatever, but they decided to be there. Something brought them there, whether it was the spirit or the good influence of someone else. And it doesn't matter what they're wearing, it's as long as they're trying their best to be there. So
recognize the good.
Right.
Instead of just looking for what they're lacking.
Awesome. Did you have any threats that you noticed, Susan?
I'm trying to think of what you're specifically talking about. I actually was thinking, as you were talking about all this, like Fallon was talking about the judgments and how he talks about intermediate judgments and the final judgments. And like Beth was worried about being able to protect her son, and that's one way you can protect him is by looking at the situation at hand and making that intermediate judgment and making sure the situation is okay. You have the right to judge in that case so that you can keep your children safe and know what situations they should be a part of and not be a part of, and what you can let into your home or what you can't let into your home. We need to be able to judge those things. And what we can't do is that that final judgment.
Sure.
We have no right to say we can't read somebody's heart and mind, so we can't make that final judgment. That's left up to the Savior. That's what I was thinking as you guys were talking.
That's awesome. So the threat that I really noticed, the situation with the children, which always just almost makes me cry because it's just so heartbreaking. But I feel like drugs is what came to my first mind. Of course, none of us right here are going to struggle with that, but there's like legalization right now happening in a lot of states for marijuana. And then also just if your child does drugs or if your child gets into drugs, like how are you going to react to that? Are you going to completely shun them or shut them out? Or are you going to, like, how do you love a child through drug abuse, or even just like smoking? I don't know how I could handle that in my family if my kids were drinking or or doing drugs or smoking, I personally think that it's a huge threat because it's everywhere. But I don't know how I'm going to handle it personally if it happens to my children because I am so opposed to them that it would be hard for me to be extremely compassionate to what they feel. And so I don't know. What do you guys think? How would you respond to your children if they came home and or if you found out from someone that they had been drinking or doing drugs?
Oh, initially I'd freak. I just know I would be like, you what? Like, try again, honey. Did we have to watch the video in this class about the son who told his dad that he was gay?
Yeah.
Okay, I just keep thinking about this over and over and over again because, like, I haven't had to deal with that in my family, but my little brother struggled with some things, and when he first told me about it, I was seriously like, dude, what's wrong with you? Like, just say no. But for me, that's never been a temptation. It's not something I've had to deal with, and I've really had to learn, going back to judgment, to be compassionate of his circumstance because for him, he doesn't have the gift of making good friends easily. He doesn't have the gift of self-confidence. He doesn't have a lot of these things that make it easier. I'm not trying to make myself sound like cocky, but like those are certain things that I'm good at that he really struggles with, and it's things that make it easier for me that make it harder for him. And so I think this kind of goes back again to judging the circumstance, and I think you really just have to love him through it. And there's a lot of prayer because every child is going to need you to love them in different ways and guide them in different ways. But I just know for me at first I would flip. I would have to do a lot of repenting, and I would have to repent every day probably. And I would really struggle with that.
Okay, we should probably move on to the next question because we're already at like 20 minutes almost. So, how does Elder Holland's description of Babylon and Israel coincide with defending the doctrine of family in these latter days?
Well, I don't know. All I was thinking, so this kind of confuses me. I remember he was talking about how throughout time, God's people had always fled whenever there was wickedness surrounding them. But now we're supposed to respond differently. We're supposed to. He used the word attack. That was interesting to me. Like at the end, he's like, we're supposed to attack Babylon, where we are. So I don't know. That's just kind of what I'm thinking. Like I guess that it's different. I don't know if it coincides.
I think you're right. I totally agree with that. I think Babylon is everywhere now. It's everywhere, and we can't flee. There's nowhere to go. We have to stand up, and we have to. There's so many people who are going along with Babylon just because they don't know the truth is out there. So we have to stand up, and we have to be that voice so that people can understand what is right. We have to do that where we are right now because, like I said, there's nowhere to run anymore.
Yeah.
I really like at the beginning he talks about how the back in the days throughout history when Babylon was there, the Lord at some point will say, okay, fine, go ahead and start Zion house. But then he says there's nowhere for us to go. Literally, this is it for us. Zion is here in our homes, wherever the church is. But then he says how that in reality, church can never, ever, sometimes I guess I am also one to say that I have fault in this, that sometimes I say, I'm not going to say anything, I don't want to, have any conflict. But then at the same time, I was reading that he said the church can never dumb that down. That the doctrine in response to, social goodwill and political stuff, we have to stand for what we believe. And in that comes, being a light in the world, sharing what we know to be true. The families, it's, so important that it's part of the plan. That is what is going to take us back to Heavenly Father. There's no chance for us to say, I'll stay on the side and not say anything. Because it says in there, we have to share those things with the world, with the people that we care about, with the people that are around us. So it's kind of like an invitation to act, and be at the same time charitable and compassionate and loving, but never changing. The laws of God will never change, so they're still there whether the world thinks they're antique or not. So I thought that
I
was
think,
good.
yeah, I think that pretty much covers that question for sure. So, what characteristics and attributes did Elder Holland expound on that will make you more effective family advocates?
I didn't hear all that.
Sorry. What characteristics and attributes did Elder Holland expound on that will make us more effective family advocates?
Talked about the attributes of Christ. What were you going to say?
Just kind of the same thing, that we have to be motivated by love, but also, I don't know, it just really stood out to me, like the whole example of a mom wouldn't, like if a teenager was like, well, why does everyone else have to follow stop signs? I know that's our values, but why are you trying to push them on others? And just kind of like how he compared that to other things, like spiritual things that we know are spiritually dangerous, and not doing anything about it just because other people don't care. I don't know, just not being like, I guess, permissive parents, or not, just being firm but still motivated by love. And I think that's hard. It requires us to be really strong and to have faith, because the world doesn't recognize truth that we know. So
I think I really like the example that he gave, like the stoplight analogy. Why are we forcing everyone else to stop at stoplights? But it's because it's for the betterment of the entire society, and I think that's how it is with like problems like abortion. It's going to be better for the whole society if that doesn't happen, or if that's not socially acceptable. Things like that, like that are huge problems that are so controversial that people fight over them literally. But we have to stand up for them because it's going to better the entire society. Okay.
I think really quick, just like something that I've been thinking about is like a lot of times we're afraid of standing up for those issues because we're afraid of being shut down. But like if we don't stand up, nobody's going to. That it has to be our responsibility to just live out in the open. We can't hide, because people who are looking for the truth, a lot of times they don't know where to find it unless they see it right in front of their faces. And where you were talking about with the stoplights, and with agency of other people, you can't force anyone to do it. I get that, but like if you're not trying, then I think God's gonna hold you more accountable than if you try and fail.
Okay, and at some point, I mean, all of you have kids or no?
I do.
I do.
Yes.
So 2 of you do, and the 3 of us don't.
I do. Yeah.
Okay. So at some point, I mean, also the whole thing of standing up for something is because, one day, for those that already have kids, you're responsible for what your kids know to be true. And, for those of us that don't have kids now, I mean, having that testimony and the strength of it, will help us teach them at some point what they need to know to be true. Because if not, society will teach them otherwise. And if we cannot teach our own kids, I mean, that's who's going to teach them,
I agree.
I totally agree 100%. And I also think about the scripture, one of my favorite scriptures, Esther 14:4 or 4:14, one of those numbers, and where who knows if thou art called come to the kingdom for such a time as this. We are responsible for where we are, whether we're teaching our own children or whether we're in a conversation with coworkers or friends or other students or whatever. We're responsible to stand as a witness at all times and in all places, no matter where we are, who we're talking to, at the grocery store, it doesn't matter. We're responsible to make sure that we don't let those moments go by and let people think that we agree with the ways of the world. Because if we don't say anything, it's the same thing as agreeing with those things. And if we know something's not right, then we have a responsibility to say what we know is true.
That's awesome. I think the next question is really similar to this. Like the last two are very similar. So the first question is, according to what you have learned from Elder Holland's talk, what obligation, if any, do you have in a scenario like the one in the video? That was the one about the boy coming out to his dad. And then the last question is, if you were a customer at the restaurant and observed this father-son exchange, what principles or attributes did Elder Holland teach that should guide your response? So obligation, and then what should your response be based on Elder Holland's talk?
I really liked, there was two parts in here that I really thought of. One of them was the part where it says some issues and laws have eternal consequences. And the other one that said judge righteous judgments. I think the father, overwhelmed as he was, and I would probably be super overwhelmed too, they instantly are only focusing on the one thing their son just told them. They almost forget everything else. And that's not passing righteous judgment. While your son is struggling and while this I don't want to call it an issue, but while this trial is at hand, I mean, that is an eternal consequence trial. You know, that's a big thing. But I think that if the dad and me as a parent, if I can remember that my son is so much more than the one thing he just told me, and to remember that God knows that he's struggling with this, and I need to have God help me understand my son even more. And I just thought that those were two things that I really should work on now while my one son is little, you know. And I only have one. Like those are things that I really need to remember. And with my husband, with my friends, I can practice realizing that the person is so much bigger than the one thing that just happened. And I'm responsible eternally for the consequences of my actions too. And if I am passing judgment and choosing not to love this son beyond what he just told me, that's a huge consequence for me eternally, and one I don't ever want to have to live through.
Yeah. And I don't know for me, I don't know if we have an obligation to step in a situation like that. I don't know if we're obligated to. I think it's nice if we try to support the son or try to rationalize with the father, but at the same time, if I was in a restaurant and something personal was happening, I don't feel like it's my place to be in someone else's business like that. I mean, they're making a scene, but I feel like I would want to say something. Like if the dad left, I would want to support the son. But if they're together and if he's yelling, I mean, I feel like for me anyway, that would be extremely rude of me to step into their personal business when I don't know any of the backstory. So I don't know if we do have an obligation, but I know we have an obligation to love them both, and to judge righteous judgments, like you said. So we can't think, oh, the dad's a terrible person, or oh, the son's a terrible person, because we don't know their backstory.
If I may say, remembering on that second story, the third story about the mother with the children, I love the fact that, the police officer actually offered a prayer for the children. And I know, like you said, it's very difficult to know what you would do if you were in that situation, but I definitely think that Heavenly Father will hear a prayer if you pray for that father and for that child, so that both of them can, feel the Spirit at some point and try to, understand each other. Because like you guys said, I don't know how I would respond. Probably only if I'm in that situation. But I definitely know that if somebody else was praying for me, Heavenly Father can help them both. So.
I like that.
Awesome. Well, I think we've answered all the questions really adequately. So Heather, do you want to give us the summary?
Okay, I tried to keep notes, but I missed a lot of it. So if you want to jump in, but I'm sure our teacher is watching the whole thing. So we just talked about. First question, what threats face our children? We talked about how we need to teach our children how to handle the different moral issues that are in our world, and also how to be righteous judges and not judge unrighteously, and just how we would respond to children if they're going through, or if they approached us and they were doing something that we knew what was wrong. And we talked about how nowadays we have to defend against Babylon and create Zion in our homes and where we are, instead of leaving and trying to escape it, because we can't escape it, and because the rest of the world needs us to be a light to them. Because there are many people seeking for the truth that don't know where to find it, and if we're trying to be Christ-like and living faithfully to what we know is true, they'll recognize that, and they'll recognize that in our lives. And then let's see, I'm trying to remember the third question. Okay, so we talked about how we need to be Christ-like and loving, but we have a responsibility to defend the truths that we know, and that in the situation with the son who was gay, I guess it just seems we kind of decided that we need to be loving, but I don't know, not necessarily step in that situation in particular. I don't know. That's all I got for now.
Awesome. That was a great summary.
Great.
Okay, well I think we're done for the night, guys. And then I'm just gonna in the chat box, we'll set up next week who wants to set up the Google Hangout and then be the moderator. And
I will offer, if that's okay, I will offer to start the meeting
Yeah.
next time. Did everybody put their emails on? Can everybody put their emails on the chat? And is 6:30 a good time for everybody? Thursday at 6:30?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So we'll keep it like that. That way we know. All I'll need is just the emails, and then I'll do it.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll post the link really quick for this week. So.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everybody.
Everybody. See you
Bye.
next week.
Bye-bye.